At dawn on October 18, 1942, the desert east of El Alamein was quiet but tense, the horizon glowing with the first thin light. Yet as the clock edged toward 5 a.m., the 3rd Squadron of the Italian Savoia Cavalleria mounted their chargers and lined up in the sand. Their polished sabers caught the rising sun, and the air filled with the restless stamping of hooves. Before them stretched the Soviet lines, dug into the Egyptian desert like scars of steel, trenches bristling with rifles and machine guns. What followed would be remembered as the last great cavalry charge in history. The order was given, and the earth seemed to shake as 600 horsemen surged forward in a sweeping arc. The thunder of hooves drowned out the rattle of distant gunfire, dust rising in a golden storm that blinded the defenders until it was too late. The Soviets opened fire, bullets whipping through the air, tearing men from saddles, horses collapsing mid-stride, yet the charge did not falter. Riders leaned low, sabers flashing, pistols cracking, the line crashing into trenches with an impact that shook the ground. The old world, steel against flesh, blade against rifle, had returned for one final act. For a moment, the impossible seemed true. The cavalry slashed through the first line, scattering the fenders in chaos. Horses leapt over trenches, riders fired down into dugouts, and the Soviets reeled under the fury of an attack that seemed torn from another century. But modern war has little mercy for gallantry. Machine guns found their mark, the stutter of automatic fire cutting through the dust and smoke. Men fell in heaps, horses screamed as they stumbled, and the desert floor became a graveyard of flesh and steel. The charge split into fragments, squads breaking off into smaller fights, some dismounting to fight hand to hand, others retreating to rally again. By 10 a.m., the battlefield was a nightmare of twisted bodies, shattered sabers, and blood-darkened sand. The Italians had driven deep into enemy positions, but the price was ruinous. Still, against all odds, they had held their ground. Soviet survivors retreated, shaken by the savagery of men who seemed to rise from the pages of history. News of the charge spread quickly, whispered first among soldiers, then echoed in dispatches across Europe. In an age when engines and armor ruled the battlefield, men on horseback had carved their names into legend. For the Italians, it was a rare spark of honor in a war that offered little glory. For the Soviets, it was a haunting reminder that even the most modern army could be rattled by the shock of tradition unleashed with fury. When the dust finally settled, nearly 1/3 of the Savoia Cavalleria lay dead or wounded. Horses limped back riderless, saddles soaked in crimson. Survivors dismounted in silence, their faces carved with exhaustion, their eyes fixed on the horizon, where the desert still shimmered with heat. The battle had not turned the tide of the war, but it had carved a story so improbable it would outlive the men who fought it. The last great cavalry charge was not victory or defeat. It was the collision of centuries, a moment where sabers met machine guns, where the thunder of hooves drowned out the engines of war, and where courage clashed with inevitability. After that morning, no battlefield would ever again echo with the sound of massed horsemen breaking into a charge. The age of cavalry had ended. But on the desert sands of El Alamein, its final breath had been a roar.